welcome to the Good Girl Confessional podcast. I'm your host, Sandy Lowres, and the Good Girl Confessional podcast is proudly brought to us by WB40. Women Beyond 40, a platform for women 40, 50, 60 and beyond. Before we begin today, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which this podcast is recorded, and that is the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nations, and I pay respects to their elders past, present and emerging. I would also like to pay homage to their incredibly long history as storytellers. Today in the podcast, my very special guest is an extraordinary woman. After chatting with her, I love her even more. Her name is Marci Warhaft. Marci has had an extraordinary life, and she has written it all down in a memoir. And the memoir is actually called The Good Stripper, a soccer mum's memoir of lies, loss and lapdances. But she is far more than a stripper. Stripping, in fact, was only a part of her life. Marci's gone on to do some incredible things. She is an advocate for body positivity, having actually gone through an eating disorder and conquering that herself. She's quite extraordinary. She has written the Body Image Survival Guide for Parents, which helps children to bolster their self-esteem as they go through life. She has survived a traumatic, dysfunctional marriage. She's come through the other side. She's quite extraordinary. And through releasing this book and sharing her story and getting rid of a whole lot of shame, she's actually discovered herself. Please welcome to the confessional, Marci.
Hey there. When Sandy's not interviewing kick-ass women, she's hanging out with me at Alex the Seal, a podcast about music and nostalgia. I'm Jo Pybus, and each episode, Sandy and I talk about all the songs that got us hooked up, knocked up, and broken up. Do yourself a favour and search Alex the Seal on your podcast app. Love you, Molly.
Hi, Marci, and welcome to the Good Girl Confessional. How are you?
I'm so happy to be here and excited to talk. Let's do this.
I am super excited to have you in the confessional today because I love everything that you are doing. I think you spread such positivity across your social media platforms, and it's brilliant. So, but it wasn't always like that for you, this whole sense of positivity and wholeness. So I wanted to talk about a few things today. There's a lot to unpack here with you. You wrote this kind of extraordinary book, and I was just saying offline how raw, honest and brilliant it is, and your courage to tell this story. Your book is called The Good Stripper, a soccer mum's memoir of lies, loss and lapdances. How did the book come about?
Well, it's funny because I want to say first, while I do try to spread positivity, I'm also not somebody who's big on toxic positivity. So there's also a lot of me kind of venting, and when I'm angry, you'll know it. When I'm upset about something, you'll know it. But then when I want to sing and dance and be ridiculous, I do that too. And I think that's what's come out of me actually writing the book, is showing all of me. And I don't think that there's enough of that. I know that for me, I had spent decades hiding parts of my life. I had gone through a lot of trauma, and it led me in some directions I wasn't prepared for, equipped for, expecting. And I did some things that I wasn't proud of. I did some things that carried a lot of shame. I did things that carried a ton of fear because I was afraid I was a mom, and I was terrified that my kids would either find out about the mistakes I had made, or other people would find out and then they would be negatively impacted. And that was my worst fear. So I kept a lot of things hidden. And what that does, though, is by hiding so much of my past and what I carried with shame, I always say I wrapped my secrets in shame, and I hid them away, praying that they wouldn't escape. And then one day I said, no, I'm not doing that anymore. And I released them myself. And that's when the freedom came, because I felt I was living a partial life. I would meet somebody and I would think, okay, so how much do I tell them about my life? And when do I tell them? And I had no idea what people would do when they found out it personally, professionally, in any capacity. So I was so afraid of the truth coming out that I kind of kept myself smaller than felt comfortable. You know, even when I was a little kid, I was a go big or go home kind of gal. And I felt like I had to really not be fully me because I didn't want anyone to pick up on anything or anything. And then I got to a point I was turning 50 and something in me that said, this isn't right. It doesn't feel right. I didn't feel right in my own life. And I thought, for some reason, I kept thinking, okay, there's more years behind me than ahead of me. I'm not going to waste another minute not being fully me. I'm done feeling ashamed. I'm done feeling guilty. And I started to realize that I dedicate my book to people who may be struggling to forgive themselves for the mistakes they made when they were just trying to survive. And I realized that's what I had done. All of my mistakes, I'd never done anything maliciously. I'd never done anything to go out and hurt anyone except for myself. I had such low self-esteem that I was hurting myself and being self-destructive. But I did the best I could with what I had at that time. And in forgiving myself slowly, I really, all of that fear started to kind of, maybe it was a rebellious thing in turning 50, but it was this thing of like, you know what, I'm done hiding. I am going to, instead of being afraid that I'm going to meet somebody who's going to say, I know about your past, I'm going to put it out there so that nobody can come at me with anything that I haven't shared myself. And it was scary in the sense that I didn't know how people were going to react. However, I was finally at a place in my life where I was okay with me. And I had to get there, because if I wasn't okay with me and someone else then gave me a hard time, then I'd crumble. I'd crumbled in the past. But when I was finally okay with me and made peace with the stuff that I had done and who I was at that time, it didn't matter. It really didn't matter what other people thought. And it was the most liberating, exhilarating feeling to have it's still very bizarre when people say, I ordered your book. And I'm like, great. And then I'm like, oh my God, they're going to read it. I'm always like, you're going to learn a lot about me. You're going to know me intimately. But it's also this feeling of, so what can't I say now? What can't I do now? Because everybody knows everything anyway. So it really gives you this freedom. And maybe again, it's being in my 50s or something very powerful. I know that we're supposed to be afraid of getting older as women, but I think it's pretty friggin' amazing, because I do feel like when challenges come at me, not even challenges, opportunities. In the past, there are certain things I'd be like, oh, I'm afraid because what if I fail? What if I look stupid? Now I'm like, how can I not do it? I mean, now people just expect me to do the crazy thing. So how can I not? And that's such a much better feeling, because I think we're so fueled by fear, and I'm not fueled by fear anymore. And that's kind of how the book came out, because I wanted to release myself of the shame, and what's come out of it has been even better, because it's just led me to more and more and more.
God, I love this so much. You know, I built an entire platform on changing this narrative around aging. I'm very pro aging, and I think we have to embrace it as women, because what happens is we gain so much wisdom with every year that goes by, right? And that wisdom should be honored and embraced and shared. And what I loved about your book was how much wisdom you shared, because yes, this is a memoir. It's a powerful journey, but the insights that you give, not just about yourself, really, I felt would resonate with so many women. You know, regardless, our situations may all be different, but everyone, I believe, is carrying something that they really need to let go of it. Let go. And as you say, in hitting 50, how powerful. I think it was like Helen Mirren, the actress. I say this quite a bit, but she was the one who said, I just got to an age where I had no more fucks to give.
Yeah, that's it.
And I think it's powerful, right? Because you go, well, that's it. Let it go. So let's talk about that a little bit, though, because your book is powerful. So for those that don't know, it's got, as you know, quite an evocative title. But in actual fact, this book is more than just being your life as a stripper, which was not the biggest part of your life. So let's go back a little bit. So as a child, you had a fairly traumatic childhood, as many of us have had, which was difficult. was it because do you think you just didn't get the support? And I think a lot of women in our age bracket didn't get the kind of support we needed as
No, I
children.
think it was the opposite. Actually, it's funny
Ah,
because for me, yeah, I think my story is kind of opposite to some. I was lucky enough that even though my father left when I was young, and he left and left my mom with three kids to support, he wasn't a big part of my life, sadly. And so when he left, it was hard. I mean, I remember being at 10 years old and asking my mother what's so bad about me? My father doesn't even want to know me. But she was like, no, it's not you. And my mother was so incredible that I didn't miss not having my father around. So I was lucky enough to have a really spectacular parent, and I was very, very close with my older brother. And so he was 5 years older, and I had his love and his support. So I grew up with this amazing support where I felt loved and I felt protected. And my mother would tell me that I was beautiful, but she'd tell me even more than that, I was intelligent and that I was interesting and that what I said mattered. And so I grew up when I was quite young, feeling like I could do anything and feeling like I had a voice and I had a right to use it and a responsibility to use it. And I was a little dancer and singer and played sports. So all that was great. For me, I think the problem was that I lost that. So when I was 17 and my brother was 21 and he got sick and he died, that was, if I had to pick one thing out of all the traumas that would come after that, this was the one that changed my life completely, because all that support that I had was gone. And also he was so young and to me so vibrant, and like, how does a 21, no one I didn't know anyone who had lost a sibling. I didn't know anyone who lost a parent at that point. So nobody really knew what to do with me. My whole world was shattered because of if this could happen to him, I'm not safe. Plus, I felt that it should have been me. I felt that he was such a great person that I felt that the world needed him more than it needed me. And so that set me, this little girl who thought she could do anything suddenly felt like she didn't deserve anything. And I felt like I had to earn my place. And that created an eating disorder for me because I needed to control something. And the only thing I could control was my body. And I say that I always describe my brother as the invisible armor I wore out in the world to protect me. And my mom was my safe place to come home to. So losing my brother when I was 17, and then 10 years later, losing my mom unexpectedly, I lost my armor and I lost my home. And so when that happened, life was still hitting me hard, but so I had all this support, lucky enough. I know I was lucky, but then I lost it. And then I was in a dysfunctional marriage. I was living on the other side of the country from everyone I knew. And things turned for me and things turned in my marriage. And then I didn't have the support. So it was, for me, it was sort of as I got older, at 17, losing what I felt was my self-worth, and then having the world hit me and then losing my support. That's when things got really bad. So things really took a turn for me, really in my 30s was when things got really tough.
yeah, which I find really like fascinating, that kind of journey, but also I find it completely understandable. As you say, when you lose your support network, your support mechanisms, really,
Mm-hmm.
it makes total sense. And I think as women as well, that we tend to grapple when we're hit with really tough stuff. We tend to like take it all on, pull it inside of us, hold on to it. And so, I think many of us feel this kind of horrid low self-esteem. And then on top of that, what we get is this insane messaging from society and the patriarchy and the world. It's
Mm-hmm.
consistent, right? And all that does is feed into the narrative we're already telling ourselves. I'm not enough. Um,
Absolutely.
right? That's a
Right. Well,
big
that's it. Here
thing.
I'm telling myself that I need to be perfect to be worthy. I need to look perfect to be worthy. And then I have society saying, "Yeah, you're right. You do."
Right?
So
Yeah.
it wasn't that I was doing something super unhealthy. It wasn't like I was, shooting heroin, and we know that that's bad, not comparing. But here,
Hello, Sandy here from the Good Girl Confessional podcast. The Good Girl Confessional podcast is proudly brought to us by WB40, a platform for women 40, 50, 60 and beyond. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you'd like to see the rest of the video, please head over to WB40.com and subscribe to WB40 Extra. By subscribing to WB40 Extra, you're helping to support the hard-won wisdom of incredible women. So thank you. Please remember to like, share, and follow.